Welcome. I'm Janelle Kolaski, a career mindset coach and actor.
And I'm Amanda Dubois, a self-authenticity and prosperity life coach and actor as well. And we're your co-host of Mindset Artistry YouTube channel,
where we teach you the art of discovering and using your mindset
to build a career and life you desire.
Welcome back to another exciting episode of Mindset Artistry. We are very excited about our guest today, Miss Jennifer Apple, the gorgeous, wonderful Jennifer.
Thank you.
All right, so let me tell you about Jen. She's a multi-hyphenated artist who hails from NYC. She originated the role of Anna in the 10-time Tony Award winner, The Band's Visit First National Tour, and has performed at regional theaters like Chautauqua Theater Company, American Conservatory Theater, Goodspeed Musicals, and Pennsylvania Shakespeare Festival. She's developed and workshopped a ton of new plays and musicals and lent her voice to multiple original cast recordings. Jennifer has appeared on TV. Check out where the shows are, what she's up to, IMDb, hashtag strike. We can't talk about it. She also holds an MFA in acting from the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco, California. And as an acting coach, she specializes in BFA, MFA auditions, finding new monologues specifically for you, acting the song monologue, breaking down the text, Shakespeare, and scene study. She is also the founder and executive director of the Empowered Artist Collective, a community for women and non-binary artists seeking a sustainable and thriving career in the arts. She hosts the Empowered Artist Collective podcast, which you can stream wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out more on her website at www.jenniferapple.net or follow her personal journey on IG at @JenniferApple_, and your dog
Walter Apple _.
Yeah,
we can plug Walter here. Honestly, Walter. I want Walter to be famous. I don't care about my own famous journey, but like if Walter could be famous and pay my bills, I think then that's his work. Like that's the work. It's really weird having your bio read to you. I don't think that's ever happened to me ever.
I was just going to ask you that too. I was like, how does it feel to have all that recited?
I don't know.
It's so cool.
Is it? I have this weird. Thank you. I have this like weird feeling about. I mean, it's probably like a version of imposter syndrome and whatever about like, oh, it's not good enough, or like, oh, is it actually as impressive as maybe? I don't know. It's like, who's to say? And then like the way it's structured feels so not like energetically like who I am. So that also feels kind of weird because you're like, this is arguably a reflection of my body of work, but like not who I am as a human. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of weird. So that took me through an emotional journey.
Well, you're welcome. Welcome to Mindset Artistry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A roller coaster.
Glad to be here. And it's so great to be back in space with y'all because you were on my podcast. So it's just nice to be here in this way with you.
Yes.
Having us, that was awesome. It was awesome. We were just kind of starting out-ish, right, Amanda? We were still figuring out things and it was fun.
It was great.
Well, yeah, we just read this amazing bio, but I want to know more about your style of coaching artists because I don't know, Amanda and I are coaches. And anytime I say I'm a coach, people are like, oh, what sport? Because, the shoulders.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. Like
100%.
Were you a linebacker? So,
yes.
And then I said, oh, I help actors. You're like, oh, just an acting coach. I'm like, well, there's so many different types of coaching.
Yeah.
Do for artists. So I would love if you could just tell us all about what you do.
Yeah. Oh boy. Okay. So, I do a bunch of things. I think it's like morphed though into some very specific lanes. I do this thing called monologue sourcing where I find monologues specifically for people. So there are programs that do this for younger folks who are venturing into the BFA audition sphere. And they're like programs that really guide you through the BFA audition circuit and get you material for your, auditions. And I do not know of anybody other than myself who does this for like any other age demographic. In addition to that demographic, if they want to work with me and not an organization. And this did stem from me initially coaching artists on their BFA and MFA journeys. So I had, I guess, like dialing it back. So, oh my God. So I've been like teaching kids at like theater programs since I was, like out of college. Like that was one of my side hustles. And so I was always in that like teaching sphere with acting and acting the song specifically, just having a musical theater background. And then when I got my MFA, in acting, I started teaching right out of that and coaching right out of that. So I had a lot of one-on-one clients and I was helping them through their BFA and MFA journeys. And for whatever reason in my life, I don't like the phrase, but like hoarding monologues. Like that is actually what I was doing. I was keeping monologues as I found them over the course of years. Like I had binders of monologues that were not necessarily for me. I was just like, oh, this is a really cool monologue. This is something that I think is just really great. And I had all these monologues. And when I started coaching these clients, they were like, I need a piece for this process. And I was like, actually, now that I've gotten to know you, I feel like this piece or this piece might actually be really good for you. And I knew, and in my brain, the like Rolodex of all these pieces that I had, or I was like, I feel like I have a piece, and I would go scavenge through it. And I started basically doing what now is ostensibly monologue sourcing, where I find monologues specifically for people. So I don't do it by type. I have a lot of problems with that as a phrase. I want to debunk that. I don't love it at all. I think, we're multifaceted and we can be many things, and that's what it means to be an artist. And there's parts of our identity that are key to who we are, and our value systems, and how we were brought up, and how we were raised, and who we know, and all of that. And so monologue sourcing is like, I would basically like hop on a virtual call with you for an hour. I'd learn about you as a person, or basically online date you for like an hour. And I'd guide you through some helpful questions so that I can really get an overview and hopefully a little bit more of an in-depth about the details of your life. And then I go off into my Rolodex that has since expanded and continues to expand with new works and plays and TV shows and movies and all the things. And I find 10 pieces for people. And if they're going through that BFA, MFA process and they need, classical pieces and not necessarily just Shakespeare, we can talk about Greek, and we can do Greeks, and we can talk about Moliere. We can, if you need something that's classical, if you need something that's contemporary, but you have more of an affinity towards comedic stuff or dramatic stuff, which is a whole other conversation that I actually think is like, we should move away beyond that. It's more like an energy thing. Anything can be funny, anything can be dark. We can just change circumstances. Blah, blah, blah. I'm blubbering. Anyway, that's like a thing that I really do. And usually clients who find me for monologue sourcing specifically then usually stick with me to work through their material, whether it is for the BFA, MFA process, or whether they are using those to put on tape so that they can have them on their website, or whether they are wanting to take these pieces and bring them into EPAs and auditions. And then there's the ones that are more the classic, like acting the song. I do master classes and workshops at different universities and programs that bring me in. I do a lot of breaking down text workshops with those universities, as well as scene study stuff as well, Shakespeare and all that good stuff as well.
Wow.
I know. It's like a word vomit.
That was great verbal purging. I love that.
Thank you.
What a gem you are, because I think that's the first time I've ever heard someone say that they do this monologue.
Yeah.
Because as actors, we all know the amount of time and effort and redundance that goes around finding monologues, and then finding one that aligns with us on multiple levels, like you said. Because we get monologues in classes, workshops and all these things, but yet we struggle to find something that we really are passionate about, or we can play around with, and then also flip it and do it something totally different than no one has ever expected. And so what a gem you are to be able to do that and like take that, get to know people. It is like dating. I love that analogy. It's like life coaching and just coaches in general are like dating. We get to know each other on a level that most people would never get to know.
100%. 100%.
And we get to see the vulnerable sides of you. You get to see the sides that you don't get to show.
Yeah. And it's also like going back to like the human part of it too. I think that's the thing that, gets lost, although that is what we're doing. We're telling stories about like the human condition. That's what it means to be an actor specifically, right? It's like, that's the stories that I'm interested in seeing. At least we're just like a human being who's going through an experience that I can then relate to or not and learn from. Right. And so it's like, if we take the opportunity to look at finding material in a lens that is from a place of curiosity and expansion, but also like what in me do I want to share? What are stories that I have that through somebody else's words, then I get to unleash? What are things that mean a lot to me that I'm really passionate about, that through this kind of piece, I then get to express that this is something about me, right? Like also like monologues, they get a bad rap, and I am clearly a fan of them for what they are, but it really is a calling card. Arguably, when you're in a callback, they're going to give you material from the piece that you're going in for, like the show that you're going in for, what have you. A monologue is like, here I am. I'm getting to know you as a human being. And if I like you as a person, then I maybe want to work with you. And here's the material from the show. And so it's a lost opportunity if it's like, well, let me show a piece from Medea. It's like, I'm going to trust that you are a talented actor when you walk in, and that if I give you something to stretch you, you can hopefully get there because you have the skill set to do it. But if I don't know you as a person, I don't know if I want you to be in a room with me for 8 shows a week, or like rehearsal period for a long period of time, or on set with me for really long days. Like, I don't know until I get to know you and what makes you tick.
Yeah, that's great.
Oops, sorry. I was like, oh my God, that's something I learned and it changed my life. Like, I love that you brought that up, because now with my auditions, I bring so much more of Janelle into them.
Yeah.
You're afraid about doing it right or making it sense for you have to be very technical, and you know, there's an art to it, of course.
Yeah.
But then it was like dead.
Mm-hmm.
It was missing, and I actually bring a lot of humor to every audition, even if it's supposed to be kind of dramatic. And then I'll get to set, and a few times we never used any of that, even though sometimes you could. And finally I asked the director, I'm like, why did you choose me then, honestly? And he was like, oh, because we wanted to work with you, because that was a really unique spin and nobody else was doing it like that. And we're like, you know, we see you're real, we see you can act.
Correct.
Things. And I was like, oh, and then since then, now I've been booking more because I brought Janelle, you know.
It's a freeing thing too, when you're able to release that. You know, I mean, I fall into this as an actor myself often. It's just like, you really want to do a good job. You really want to get it right. And all of that is completely subjective. Like, that is the thing with art, right? Like, there's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. When I'm coaching, you know, and I ask somebody after they've like done a piece or whatever, I'm like, well, how did that feel? And they're like, it was good. And I was like, okay, I hear you. Why? How did it feel? Right. And it's like, oh, well, I felt really grounded, or, oh, I felt like I was really connected to my scene partner. Great. Now these are tangible things that we can use to like move through this piece again and continue building upon, where it's like, good. Okay, well, now what? Like, it's arbitrary, really, you know? And yeah, I love that that's like been a thing that you're now like, oh, cool. I get to have fun. I get to show up as a human being. People are learning about me. People are now wanting to work with me because I'm showing up, and everybody's quote unquote winning in that situation. You know?
Yeah, that's great. I'm curious on, as a coach in dealing with clients, what has been like an adversity or a challenge that you have seen common over and over again come up for the actors that you've worked with, that you feel needs to be addressed or said out loud, that you need to know and pay attention to as an actor or creative or just an artist in general?
Yeah, I think there's a couple misnomers. And I think the big one, and people are starting to talk about this a bit more, is just like how vulnerability is somehow weakness. Like, I'm so against that. Like, I mean, it's not even being against it. It's just like a fact. Like, vulnerability is actually strength. To be able to access that, to be able to infuse that into your craft and your art and your expression, takes a certain level of bravery and accountability that is the antithesis of weakness. I mean, it's complete strength to be able to go there. And I think it usually takes a couple of sessions for folks to, for sure, like, trust a new coach and recognize that it is a safe space to be vulnerable and to be messy. But for me, like, that is such a gift when there is like a light bulb moment and an artist is like, oh, I can be messy. Like, oh, this doesn't have to be so buttoned up. Oh, I can actually access real human feelings. I can actually cry. I can actually like get mad. I can actually be really quiet. I can actually be like, I can experience what it means to be like a human being in a full breadth of emotion. I think that is a huge misnomer that, again, is like slowly being taught and shifted a little bit, but is something that I come from, at least in my coaching spaces, really leaning into your vulnerability. I think the other part too is this idea of trusting oneself and talking oneself out of one's impulses and their gut, because they have an idea that it's supposed to be a certain way. And what makes you you, and what makes you your own artist, is the fact that you will do the piece in your own way that no one else will do it that way. Like you're just like, you are completely a different human being. And I can give, 10 people the same exact monologue, but if every single person trusted themselves and their impulses and their lives and their journeys and what makes them who they are, then in and of itself, that will be the thing that unleashes their version of the piece. And every single one of those 10 pieces will be completely different. So the self-trust is another one. And also just like the word, I mean, it's like the word now has been like butchered, like authenticity. That makes me want to like gouge out my eyeballs because it really actually means something wonderful. But the like really like the essence part of you is the thing. And we were just saying that it's like, if you are able to really own all that you are, the messy parts, the beautiful parts, the hard parts, the things that you're working through, that is your superpower. Like that is literally the thing. That is the thing. And it's like, we were taught like, well, no, it needs to be like, I'm looking at this person and they have it all buttoned up, or yeah, there's categories for it, or there's types and I need to fall into a category. Sure. And also, there is no one like you on this planet. So why are you robbing yourself of being fully embodied in all of that? Because that is your gift. That is your superpower. That is why you will be hired. I feel like those three things: vulnerability, self-trust, and I need a new word for like actually being authentically you, but like whatever that energy is.
Yeah, I know. I love that. All three. Take note, everybody, because we say it all the time. And I work with people with self-authenticity, but really inner voice and trusting, self-identity, that self-awareness. Because if you're not willing to be vulnerable, then like you said, you are putting also the material at risk. You're putting the material at risk of miscommunication, misunderstanding, and also turning off the intention of the piece or the story or the character.
Yeah.
And you throw it off, and then you're wondering, the audience is going to feel it. Here's the thing. The audience feels everything. They read everything just like the camera. And so if you're holding back just a little bit, they will read that and go, there's something off about that actor.
Yeah.
And because I've done it too, and I've
100%.
work and I've done a self-tape or a monologue or something, and I go, I see myself holding back. Like I can see the lump in my throat. I can see the tension in my shoulders. I can see just even the stuttering, and all that's in what we've learned working with casting directors and just talking to them is that they love that stuff.
Yeah.
They love you to come into the room and bring your story. See, the beauty about being an actor is that your story matters.
Yeah.
Every experience that you've had feeds every story that you're a part of.
Yeah.
And I love that you touched base on those vulnerabilities and all those things, and taking risks and finding yourself, because I think as artists, we are afraid of doing that.
100%.
Because we're afraid of
It's so
being judged.
Well, and it's even, I had to do a film last month, and I can be a little scary. Like I have a roar. I get it from my mother. She's a strong woman. She's protected my brother his whole life. He has autism. And so did I. And Amanda and I talk about this all the time. I had to stand up to bullies, like adults being mean to my brother. But there's being a woman. I've been shamed a lot for that, for having that. It's like a bark. I mean, an acting school is literally paired with men all the time, which sounds kind of funny, but literally they were like, that's your energy. You have so much male energy. And then I was doing this film and they were like, they're like, oh no, we really want you to like go there. And I was like, kind of like, okay, but but then I did. And then they were like, oh my God, I had chills and I was crying. And then the other young actor was like, thank you for really committing to it, because you made me like cry actual tears. I didn't need to like think about something. But I think that's the hardest part, when it's like these part of yourselves that society has shamed
100%,
but it's going to tell the truth of the story.
And
I'm like,
well, the bravery, it's a real bravery to step into yourself, and to own all of who you are. And sometimes I think part of it too is like, we don't even necessarily know all that we're capable of. And that is in and of itself really scary. I have a similar thing, where it's like in grad school, that was probably my kryptonite. Is that the word? The kryptonite? Like the thing that was like the Achilles heel. That's it. The thing, Achilles heel. I was like, we're talking about superheroes. And then I lost it. But like the Achilles heel of like, I take up a lot of space energetically. I've been told that similarly. I think I'm technically 5'6", but I appear like a 5'8" or whatever. People I've said that, I've been told that so many times, whatever that even means. But like I take up space and I have a commanding energy. And for so long, I was told that that is really off-putting and that it was too domineering and to be smaller. And I was therefore, holding back. And in grad school, that was like the thing that I had to really, really unravel. Like, well, why am I doing this? What am I listening to? Who am I listening to? Why have I become this way? And deciding what parts of that are actually worth me owning and how much of that is actually just like my strength. Like, I'm not going to be for everyone, and no one is going to be for everyone. I think that's another part too. Like, people really want to people please. We all want to like book the job. We want everybody to like us. We want to always be called back. And it's like, some people are just not your people. And that's really okay. Actually, it's like a fact of life. And there's a reason certain directors work with the same actors over and over again, not because there aren't other talented actors, but because they have a rapport and they get it and they don't have to explain themselves. It's just an energy thing that they enjoy being with them. And so it really is a really helpful thing to be like, okay, cool. This is who I am. I take up space. I'm a commanding person. I am pretty direct. I have a lot of thoughts. I'm not afraid to share them. I've learned to like be more discerning about when and how. I'm deeply empathetic. And so I might cry with you and I might like sit back and hear these things with you and feel a lot. And that is also my strength. And some people might hate all of that. And those people and I would never work well together. We won't, both of us. It would not be a symbiotic relationship in any capacity. And finding those people who do want you taking up a lot of space and having that roar, Janelle, and like owning that, like those are going to be the best collaborations you're a part of. So finding those spaces too, remembering that like a no is a form of a yes in that way of like, no, you're not great for us. Is like, thank you so much. I get to actually close a door on this and like move on.
That's incredible. And I hope someone out there relates to that, because I think I've struggled with that. I was just talking to someone today and I had talked about the fact that I was very insecure about the way that I spoke and where I came from. Growing up in the Bronx and having a bit of an accent and talking very fast and dropping letters, and then going to the corporate world and being judged on it or have it being pointed out in a way that wasn't so kind.
Yeah.
And so I would self-ridicule, everything that I did and depreciated who I was, who and what I was capable of. And today, and I always like to say this, and maybe I haven't said it as often, is that I've realized that your weaknesses are your best strengths. They're like your undercover strengths. Those are the things that you have to work on, because those are the things that are going to propel you to where you got to go.
Yeah. I wish there was like another word for weakness too. Like, I think it's like you know what I mean?
Less attributes, I don't know, the things that you're not so kind, like aspiring for, like less I find like something that's just low vibrations or less you don't find.
I don't know, because the shadows. Yeah, because I think
shadows,
it is
right.
It's one of those things too. Like I have not been in the corporate world the way you have, but like when they ask you those interview questions of like, what is your greatest weakness and what's your biggest strength or whatever, and usually the flip is like you actually use your strengths in your weakness. Like you talk about your weaknesses as though they're strengths. Like you're basically manipulating the word in order to give the appropriate answer about like what actually is something like, oh, I don't love using spreadsheets, but because of that, I'm really good at X, Y, and like you switch it so that it's like a positive thing.
I just feel like I agree with you. I hate saying weaknesses. I just think that I need improvement on something that needs to be worked on, because the reality is anything can be improved on if you take the time and effort and dedication to
you want to, I think that too.
That too. You're absolutely right. Like, if I didn't want to do public speaking, I don't have to. I can be behind the camera. I could be doing production, and that's absolutely okay. The beautiful thing is that anyone's out there who may feel that they're struggling with something like this is that self-acceptance, accepting all the parts of you and understanding which ones you really want to hone and not so much. You don't have to do it all. You don't have to be the person that does everything, the boom, the gaffer, the director, the cinematographer, the actor in life, the best friend, the girlfriend, the wife, the daughter. We have so many roles that we play in life. it's okay not to be perfect in all of them. Like it's
100%.
absolutely.
And also for them, for sometimes like one to take more of a precedent over the others. Like I think that too, you know, like there are seasons, I like to call it seasons of our lives, you know, also chapters of our lives. And some seasons of your life might have you really, really sitting very deeply in one thing for a necessity situation, or just because that's something that's feeling really great and you're excited to lean more into it. Or there's other seasons where you're balancing a couple of these different parts of yourself, you know, as life is thrown at you. I think it's another invitation to invest in the curiosity around one's like full identity. And what I mean by that is like hobbies and like interests and friends and family and other relationships that are outside of the job and outside of the career in the industry, so that when you come back into it, you have a more fuller human self to even pull from. I mean, not to do, you know, not to all of a sudden, you know, get really great at solitaire because you think that'll necessarily be helpful. Maybe it might, I don't know, but because you actually like solitaire and it's filling you with joy, then when you come back to the craft, you're like, oh, I've literally been able to be joyful in my human life. And now I access what joy feels like in a really true way. So that now if I need to access joy, I know what that is for myself. I think we can get really deep into the grind of it being the industry and the craft, just because it feels really dire to continue progressing at the rate that frankly we're told we're supposed to progress at. But if one decides to invest a little bit more in oneself and cultivating the things that make them happy and where they find peace and the curiosity around expansion for other things that they've always wanted to know more about and whatever, I think those things are ultimately what makes an artist, and what makes you you. And why, again, somebody would want to work with you is because you're a human being and they enjoy you or are curious about you as a human being. We forget the human part. And like, that's what we're doing here. Like, if like, that is
like human experience. I mean, not the antithesis of storytelling. There has to be this human base of it. And I think that's incredible, because I'm thinking if we've watched just writers or just stories and like shows and series and projects, if you talk to probably a lot of the writers, they've developed these characters through your real life. Right? You ever seen like you find out that a character can sing and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this character could sing.
Oh, you're saying like later in a series, like when somebody's
later
like,
in a series. Yeah, like later in a series, and I mean more for clarity here, like later in a series, like once you book that work, like it never ends. And the thing is that you bring more and more to yourself, to the character, and it gets written in or written out of it, which makes it whole. Dimensional, all these fifth stages of this character, 7, 8, whatever it is. And you can do that by exploring your hobbies, exploring your talents, in living. I think we all forget to live. We're so caught up in the being successful that we forget to live, and we're afraid to make mistakes and failure. And I'm just curious on, how do you handle, or how have you taught your clients to deal with failure? Or I wouldn't even say a failure, I just say setbacks or hiccups, because I don't believe in failures. There's always a lesson. And what have you taught them about being resilient?
This is a toughie, because I don't think I've nailed it for myself. I think I go through bouts of it where I definitely am like, this one hurt, this one really hurt, you know. I'd say have another, you know, phrase that has been, you know, used for consumerism, but like the self-care of it all, as in like, or maybe the self-prioritization of it all, of having something that is yours that you can always go back to. For me, it's hiking. For me, it's skiing, it's my dog. And so having things in place that I know are my happy places. So when disappointments happen or rejections happen or something doesn't pan out the way I wish it would have, I can go to these things that I do know are mine and that are places that I feel myself and can come back to me and my joy. So finding those things, I think, is a really helpful practice, because you will need them. You will need them forever. And they can continue growing and morphing and expanding. I think the other part too is I really try to reframe the whole journey a little bit more from the beginning. It's all part of a process. And sometimes when we're in the process itself, we don't have the ability, frankly, to really see all of it from an external perspective. And sometimes the greatest disappointments are actually the stepping stone for this thing that you had no idea was coming. And so really being curious about the process in it, being really curious about the journey rather than the outcome is something that I really try to focus on for myself, and certainly with the clients, in that, like, for example, if I'm guiding somebody through, an audition series for a series regular, right? And somebody's come to me with the material that they have for this audition, and then we've worked on it, we've deepened the circumstances, all the actor jargony, objective-y, tactic-y, whatever stuff, in addition to like really making it theirs. Because when you're booking a series regular, this is about actually you as a human, and do people want to have you for many series on a set? That's like a real thing. So let's like really bring you out in this. Okay, great, it goes really well. This person gets a call back. They come back with this similar material, if not a little bit more, and we're really working on it. From the start, like when the person has come to me specifically as a coach and they're bringing this material, it really is about, you got a series regular audition. Like, let's break this down. First and foremost, let's celebrate this win. All right. This is a huge win. Thousands of people submitted for this. Thousands, probably. This is series regular. Right. You beat out, arguably, whatever the language is, you beat out many people who are also desperately talented. You have this audition. What is this? This is an opportunity for you to show who you are to people who might not know you. You're booking the room. That is your job. Your job is to book the room. How do you do that? By being yourself, by being truthful, by being vulnerable, by being brave, by being perhaps messy, by being specific, like all of these things. That is your job in this moment. If all of that happens and you get called back, then that's another little victory. You booked the room, like that. You did the job. Like, that is ultimately the job. I would guarantee that this casting office is going to be bringing you back 100,000%. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not in a month, maybe not in a year, but they know you. That is their job, to remember you and your good work. If you got a call back, you booked the room 100%. So then it just becomes, okay, now how can I continue showing up in the way that I was, so that they continue getting to know even more of who I am as a human being, and more of what I can potentially bring to this world. You have no control over what comes on the outside of that, So really focusing on the little wins, the journey of it, the process of it, enjoying what it means to be preparing sides when somebody else would be dying to have those sides in their hands right now, let alone a callback for this kind of opportunity. And really trying to actually trust your process and trust your journey in it. And if it isn't your time now, it's coming. It is. I have to believe that, or I'd go crazy and I would not do this job. So maybe it's but maybe it's a little delusional, but I really do see it with friends of mine where it's like, yeah. God, like, or even myself, like something that I didn't think was anything, or somebody I met that I didn't think much of it. And then years later, like, this person swings back into my life in a way I never thought, or this opportunity swings back in a way I never thought. And like, then this becomes the thing,
I think so that's probably best for you too, right? Like, yeah. Or best aligned, or I love that you're like, no, just you're on the journey and we're here for it. I mean, I had a moment like that. I booked my biggest TV role.
Yes.
And I was like, holy shit. But I was like standing back before I was supposed to enter, and we're going to do the scene. And I'm kind of like in this back room. And then, I'd wanted a role like that since I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
So it took 20 years.
Yeah.
And of all this life. And then I was finally there. And I don't know, it kind of made me think like, oh God, now I'm thinking of like a Toy Story reference, like Buzz Lightyear, where he just like is like, takes off. Like, you feel like it's like going to be like this huge moment. And it was. But then what was really more impactful was like when I shared that I had booked that, like all these people on Facebook were very supportive, social media, whatever. And then I was like, oh my God, I remember you. I met you in my first audition. I met you, my first booking commercial. I thought I'd never book a commercial and all this stuff. And I was finally able to be like, this is what it's about. And I had this woman, she's very wise, that I work with. And she's like, I'm like, I don't know, there's all these things I want to do. She's like, but I think you're already doing it.
Yeah.
You're doing it.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be
the next level.
Always, every time.
Yeah. But it's also remembering, like, in that moment.
Yes.
That like that moment is never going to happen again. Like the first time you were ever on set in this way. And, like, I remember my first series regular audition. I was like, like, you know, it's like you think about getting that and then it's there. And then it's no longer the thing anymore. Now I can't say like this is my first ever. Like, I mean, there are these things that become these little milestones. And if you are able to somehow shift your mindset to recognizing that they are in and of themselves the thing, like you being on set as your like 8-year-old self standing there in the wings, like wanting to go on and doing this kind of role like this since you were like, it's happening in real time. And so to rob yourself of even just being present with that, like you're in the wings of this crazy opportunity you've dreamed about. Like the dream is there. And then ultimately you'll have another dream. And hopefully that one manifests itself as well. But in this real time, in this moment, you've hit that milestone, this little win, this big win, right? You can, arguably you could have, while you were in the wings there, been like, oh God, I'm not playing the lead. You could have done that. You could have been like, well, I'm off the series regular. And God, I guess my part is like minimal and it doesn't really matter. I'm only going to be in this, I'm making it up, I don't even know, like one episode and never going to be, I'm only on set for one day and it doesn't really matter. Like you could 100% belittle yourself in this accomplishment. But again, if we're talking about a comparison game, which is never helpful, but if we are in theory, just for the sake of this, doing that, thousands of people would pay so much money to take your spot, you know?
For real.
You
Yeah,
know?
I love that, because the truth of that also, if you're living in that kind of negative space, that detrimental mindset,
Yeah.
you're also disconnecting from the work. You're also putting that energy out to whoever you're working with.
That part.
Because it could be like you're thinking that, and then you give a look to someone, you're like, oh, and it's not towards them, but it's something you're emotionally going through, and it's like, oh, I don't want her on set. I don't want them on set because I just was giving them a direction and they completely disrespected me or misread me. And then guess what? That relationship or that connection or that collaboration that could have happened is now buried and gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's something that I think you also need to keep in mind is this is also a professional business. You have to be aware of how you're interacting with others, but also how you're interacting with yourself and showing up. Yeah. Because like, you know, we all have it. I will have a moment where I'm like, I don't know if I belong here, the imposter syndrome. Like, do I belong here? I felt this with the podcast when we first started. I'm like, what do I have to say? Yeah. The people are actually gonna listen to me. Like I really thought that for a moment. And I was like, but yeah, so what? Yeah. So what? Who cares? As long as you have fun, you're doing it for good intentions out of service and you enjoy, then who cares? Yeah. Do it anyway. It's also, even if you impacted a single human being, then you've impacted a single human being. And also, you know, I think so much of what we're taught and frankly, what society teaches us is about results and success and these words that are, dare I say, toxic, because it's all about, again, like the output and the final result, as opposed to literally what it means to like get to that point. And there really is no measuring of the result anyway. Like, you know, success in large quotations means very many different things to very many different people. And my version of success, I would imagine, is different than both of y'all's success. You know, like it's just, we all have different ideas of it. And so to be trying to strive towards this arbitrary thing arguably also takes you away from being present towards the opportunities that may be presented to you because you have an idea of how it's supposed to look, but like literally nothing in life is going to look the way you think it's going to. Like literally nothing. If I looked at my entire life, I'd say literally nothing in my life went the way it's supposed to, according to like my vision of what my life was supposed to be, you know. But like once you release that as much as you can or as best as you can, or like lean into the unknowing, which has been, I would say, like the huge thing of my life now is like really recognizing that the more I know, the less I know. And the less I know, the more I want to know. And then that whole cycle begins again. And it keeps me humble because I keep trying to surround myself with people who know more than me and can teach me more things. And I keep trying to consume more so that I can continue expanding in myself. And I think that I'm not saying I have this down pat and I'm good at it, but it's like to be on that journey of self-growth, to be on that journey of exploring what it means to find your own version of quote unquote success so that you are able to find yourself in it every step of the way. And you're not sacrificing parts of yourself to, you know, be in somebody's version of it that isn't yours. Like, I think that for me,
especially when I work with clients, is like, let's really focus in on that. Like, it's yours. This is yours. Like, it's no one else's. And don't let any other human being take that away from you. It's hard. The noise is really loud. But like, how can you hold all that you are and also own all the mess? Like the insecurities. Like I had a friend of mine who booked a series regular, and they were number 2 on the call sheet, and they had never really been on set before, like ever. And they're supposed to set the tone for the set. Like that is kind of their job also. And they walked onto set, and they're also just like unbelievably talented and just like an incredible human. But they walked on the set and they like owned like, hey y'all, I don't know what I'm doing. Like there's like the green energy in it. And like, I'm going to be new to this, and I'm going to try my best, and I'm going to own when I don't know something. So also tell me when I'm doing it wrong, and tell me where I need to be. If I need to do it differently, please help me. And there was the humble ownership of like, I'm new. And the elephant being recognized in the room allowed every other person to be like, oh, this is a leveling. This person is super self-aware. It's not trying to like be something that they're not just because they're number 2 on the call sheet. Arguably now, me as a set person, like a person on set, wants to actually like make them know faster so that they can continue owning their job the way that they will. I just think there's something about really owning all of these quote unquote, again, the word weaknesses that we think are not worthy of taking up space. But those are the things that like make us human, and then therefore makes us the artists that we are.
Absolutely. I mean, like you said earlier, is that not everybody's going to like you. You can't please everyone. That's just the reality of it, because you're also not competing, but you're being in comparison to someone else that may look like you, that they had an experience with, and you activate something within them, or like all these things. And it takes so much energy, so much time to try and be something that you're absolutely not, when in reality you should just be who you are. And if they accept you or not, that's absolutely okay.
Yeah. It's hard to do it. I mean, like we're also talking about this as though it's for like easy.
Oh my gosh, it's so hard to do. So hard to do. Are you kidding me? As humans, we care. We care. Absolutely. So hard. So hard. Like the comfortability of letting go, because it eventually passes. Like you said, you're never going to have that experience again. Whether it was a series regular, or you're working on set for 6 months, 2 weeks, or a day. The yesterday is never going to be the same as the next day and the day after that. No experience is ever going to be the same. And so you got to take it with a grain of salt and just take it as like you go. Yeah. Because otherwise you're going to be so caught up in the what ifs, the could haves, the shouldas, the would haves, all these things. And it takes away from you. It takes away from your art. It takes away from your connection. It takes away from the flow. And like you said, especially if you're like number 2 on set and number 2 on the call sheet, you've got to set that tone. Yeah. You've got to interact with directors and the extras and all these things. And it matters. People are watching, whether you realize it or not. And it's better to just let it go, be yourself, and lead with kindness. But it's very hard to do when we're caught in our thoughts and the things that we're not so happy about, and like questioning if we belong here, and like, I want more. If you want more, you're never going to appreciate where you are.
I love the idea though of the letting go in it. Again, none of these things are like easy. We're talking about like really hard things, but I think the letting go a little bit more, or maybe not holding on so tightly, that's been something that I also have been trying to continue cultivating within myself, of, not in a way that's flippant. I think like letting go can also be a way to deflect things that actually we need to sit with, or would be helpful for us to unpack a little bit more. So I think when I hear that, I think more of like the letting go of things that add additional stress. It's like you can feel it in your body, the way that something manifests itself when it feels hard. I know for me, my shoulders, like it always impacts my shoulders and my neck. And I thank God for my chiropractor, Kareem. He's literally, if I didn't have him, I don't know who I'd be. Shout out Kareem. But it manifests itself like on my shoulders, in my shoulders. I start to see it and feel it in my posture. I like, it starts to manifest itself in like headache land. It's just like, it starts to be impactful. And so for me, it's helpful to think of it as like, all right, if I have a backpack, that's like all of the things that need to get done. There's all the stuff that's like the life stuff that has to happen in order for things to keep moving forward. And then there's the things that I get to choose what of the other stuff that is on the periphery that I'm opting to take on can I let go of, or maybe push to a different time when I have more of a capacity to hold on less, hold on to, what am I saying? To hold on to less, right? Is that verbally correct? Sometimes I speak English and I'm like, who am I? And do I speak this language? Like to hold on to, that's not grammatically correct. I'm just going to sit here going on like a grammar spin. To let me find the words. What am I saying? Like basically to just not hold on so hard to the things. That's what I wanted to say. Jesus Christ. To not hold on so hard to these things that don't have the urgency, or you don't have the space to hold them in the way that you would like to. And to recognize that to let these things go for the time being and to give them space and to not put them in that metaphorical backpack will allow you to breathe deeper and allow you to do the things that are in that backpack that are of more importance more effectively. And arguably, when you feel that way, you will actually get to the thing you let go of and put a hold onto in a more full way anyway. I equate it to like when people are like, well, do I leave the business? Do I take a break? It's like, if you want to take a break, this business isn't going anywhere. It's going to keep shifting and doing weird things. But like you are an artist, whether you are paid for it or not, whether you're booked in it or not, whether you have worked or not, you are an artist, period. Your work doesn't define you. Your success, whatever that even means, doesn't define you. You are an artist in the way that you exist in this world and communicate with people and the rooms and communities that you decide to be a part of. So if you're letting go of this part of yourself, like the hustle part of it for a moment so that you can focus on your joy, you can focus on building a family, you can focus on creating more of a financial grounding for whatever it is. If you're taking a break or a breather, that doesn't mean you can't go back and pick up the thing that you let go of. I think we just think of it in a different way of like, well, I let it go and now I'm letting somebody down, or I like, it's like, no, there can be a little bit more levity in the way that we're choosing to put things in our lives.
Yeah, this is so important. And again, you just spoke to that self-awareness, that inner voice. If you're not taking that moment to ask yourself those important questions, I always ask myself, like you talked about like taking off the book bag. I ask myself, is this irrelevant to where I want to go right now? Or is it relevant to me? Do I need to address this now? Is it limiting me? And I have to ask myself these things internally and go, all right, I need a moment. I need a moment. I need to digest this really quickly. I need to walk away for just give me 5 minutes, whatever. And it's okay to do that.
Yeah.
Come back refreshed. And also I think there's a fear there of, I can't take a moment. I can't process this. I don't have time. And I get it, because the time limit with filming and all these things, but as if you don't, then you can't be full in your work.
And your human self again, like going back to the same thing.
Or use it. At the same time, I go, okay, you know what? I'm feeling this right now. How can I use this for my character? Like this is real, because this take is going to be totally different than the next one. So yeah, like
Amanda, that I had to cry for like 4 hours straight on this indie film I just did. And then they were like, there was somebody who was like, okay, like we have to wait. They wanted to do with like no certain types of lighting. So we had to wait for clouds. We had to wait for clouds to move. And they were like, okay, how long is this cloud? Somebody was like 8 minutes. And then they're like, okay, but then we have to take a break. And there's like all this shit.
I love how there was like a meteorologist on set.
Yeah, it was like crazy. Yeah, like all this is happening. And then I started feeling judged by the crew. I wasn't, but this is how I was feeling. I was like, oh God, people are judging me. I'm not good enough. I'll never be good enough. This is something you want to do your whole life. You suck and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then they were like, like action. And I was like, everybody stop judging my daughter. And I was like, I'll never be enough. It was like this crazy. And then it was just like tears.
Oh my
God. Then I was like, okay. And then I grabbed my daughter and we did the scene, but I was just trying to unlock. But
yeah, but you moved through it. Like that's the whole thing. You didn't pretend that wasn't real. Like it was
there. Oh my God. Jenna,
yeah. You got to acknowledge it. You got to acknowledge it. Yes.
No, but that's exactly. And that's the real thing though. I know it's fine. That's the real thing though. It's like, again, if you didn't move through that, then you weren't going back to these like vulnerability, the truthfulness, like the human part of why you were put in this role to begin with. Like
I was like closing in and I was like, no.
Because like you become robotic as well, because you're trying to repeat what you just did.
Which also is like
over there.
Yeah.
But you're
like,
no
you want the tear stick? I was like, do not. I was like over my teacher's dead body, because it would be like, it's no judging. It's just for me, like it would not be real though. It wouldn't be real.
Yeah.
And And then I would know, and then everybody else would know. Like,
Yeah. Well, the camera certainly doesn't lie. So we all would know 100%.
Yeah.
100%. But that's also like, that's why there's many takes, because we don't need you to do the same take over and over and over again, unless they're like, please, we need this. And, the exact same take, because we're filming it from all different angles and we need the exact same thing, then fine. But if you haven't gotten that note and you're filming the exact same thing, then like, don't go ham with it, but just like find another truthful version of this scene and access that so that they have different things to pull from. That is why you're giving multiple takes ultimately. Or like, when somebody sings a song and, it's like the difference in musical theater. It's like when you have a chorus or a line in a verse that repeats itself over and over again, that is an opportunity for actual like scene work of like, why do I need to repeat myself? If I said it the first time, it would have worked. Why am I saying it the second time or the third time? Like, why am I needing to repeat this over and over again? What did it not accomplish? Right? It's the same kind of thing. It's like, if you have the versions of it, if you don't access the different versions in yourself that are truthful again, then like, what are you doing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that definitely takes the pressure off, especially what our teacher, Anthony Abeson, what does he say? Emotional something pressure, Amanda. Emotional result pressure. He's like, oh, it's an ERP moment. I mean, luckily I had a good director that was very understanding, and she's also an actor, so that's so nice. An actor's director is very helpful.
Very.
Oh my gosh, Jen, this is amazing. You're amazing. We love having you. We could talk forever about everything.
I know. Thank you for having me in this space. It's like really cool. I rarely get to talk about the coaching that I do. And I also own that I have a bit of not imposter syndrome around it. I'm a fucking great coach, if I may be so bold.
Yes.
Thank you.
I feel better after this. I'm like,
good. But it's also, like it's like a sea of many, many coaches for people to choose from. And I feel I'm learning to lean into promoting myself in this way, because marketing feels icky. And that's my own journey of trying to like peel that off for myself. But thank you for giving me the space to talk about it a little bit more, just because it is something that I'm really passionate about, working with artists in this way. And it continues to make me a better artist to be able to work with other artists in this capacity, to have to like unleash this in others. Like, I have to be honest and truthful within myself to be present for that. So I'm just grateful that the space existed in this way. And so thank you for giving me, this is the first time I've ever really gotten to talk about it, like ever too. So thank you.
I feel so honored. And thank you for sharing that. You are incredible, by the way. Everyone should contact you in some way now, because
I definitely am for the monologues. I don't have a monologue that I really love.
Reach out.
Either. Not anymore. I used to, but
I'm here. And you'll put it in the show notes, but I do have a promo code for it for your listeners. So if they want it, so I sent that to y'all. You can put that wherever your listeners can reach out for it. But yeah, I'm so grateful that y'all are in my life and that we have this symbiotic situation. And thank you for giving me this space. And I don't know what else I need to say. Like, if I need to like plug things, I don't know what.
Whatever you want, darling. No, I love that. And again, thank you, because as a fellow podcaster, I've appreciated seeing people go through their journey and the progress they've made and the transparency, because I feel sometimes a lot of people don't have the transparency of sharing and also allowing others to be on their podcast. So we thank you for allowing us to be in your podcast, because that was us, that we got to talk about our podcast in a space that wasn't ours. And it was really it was just really wonderful, at least for me, because I was like, oh well, finally I get to be on somebody else's podcast about like who I am, which again, I know how it feels to be like, what do I do? I am Amanda, and I've done this and that. And so that was wonderful and incredible to be able to do that and be in your podcast, and vice versa, creating that safe space and that wonderful space to share. So
thank you. Well, your listeners should listen to your episode on the Empowered Artist Collective podcast, because it was a really solid episode. Very different than this one that I just did with y'all, but
great.
Definitely more vulnerable and brave. And arguably you put into practice what I've been talking about here from your human selves on that episode. So just really grateful, and thank you for this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, all right. Well, goodbye, everybody. Thanks for listening.
We'll see you or hear you next time. Yeah, all that good.
That's why I always do. What are your thoughts about this episode?
Drop it in the comments and let us know what you want to dive into next.
Subscribe, like, share, and click the link below to book a free consultation. And
We'll see you next time.